kept trying to become more disciplined in my life until I realized that discipline wasn't the missing piece. I used to think if I could just get more done, if I had a bit more motivation, a better morning routine, then life would be great. But I didn't realize that in that process, I'd lost my capacity to receiving life. And nobody tells you this. One day you stop noticing the jasmine flowers scent in bloom, or you eat your lunch in such a rush that you don't even realize what the tastes are there. And the sun warms your skin, but you barely feel it because you don't slow down enough to enjoy it. And so you keep telling yourself, I'm going to slow down when everything gets done. But hey, we know that to-do list is just never ending. And so you wake up tired, your mind is already running ahead of you, and your days are full, yet life begins to lose its flavor. I hear women describe this every single week. They think that they've lost themselves. They think that they're just too busy. They think that this is just what happens when you are over 40. Is it? Well, it doesn't have to be. Ayurveda recognizes this behavioral pattern is linked to the quality of Rajaguna. And so Rajas, it gives us this fire to create, to care, to build our lives. But it becomes chronic and your nervous system forgets its vital, sacred essence. And it forgets how to receive. And a life without receiving pleasure, it starts to feel like it fades. There's no joy. Joy is distant. And vitality feels like it's something that you felt in your 30s, something that you remember rather than something that you live every day. And so your body hasn't forgotten who you are. It simply needs the right conditions to remember. In this excerpt from the Sacred Pleasure Workshop, I'll show you how chronic rajas quietly steals the sweetness from life, and how Ayurveda offers a path back to a nervous system that can soften, receive, and feel deeply alive again.
As women, we don't give ourselves enough pleasure. I think we need to cultivate better relationship with our pleasure. And there's a growing conversation that you can see around women's health and dopamine and oxytocin, that women need more oxytocin, more of that touch. You know, these are beautiful insights that, you know, weren't there 10 or even 30 years ago, because women's bodies and the way that we receive pleasure wasn't really at all studied. And I think we can draw on, though, that yogic and Ayurvedic wisdom, because it's long understood about pleasure, you know, the drive and the fulfillment of pleasure. And many women today, we're living in that chronic rajas. We got this movement, the ambition, the stimulation, the striving, that restlessness, that I'll rest when I've done this task, or I'll be enough when I've reached that many da-da-da, fill in the blank. Or just one more client a week would be amazing, or one more task. But eventually our nervous system, it forgets to receive. And so yoga has always talked about the real question of, can you accomplish without losing your capacity to experience wonder in your life? Can we build a business while noticing jasmine flowers, roses out on our evening walk? Can we lead without abandoning our softness? Can we create without making our worth dependent on our outcome? And Ananda, this is where it fits in beautifully for us, because Ananda becomes of special relevance for us what pleasure is. Because the yogic sense isn't that, and that this reward is at the end of something or the cost of us doing something. It says that we are bliss. It says that we are that Ananda. It's not a reward that we have to earn. It's that quality of awareness when we become intimate with that present moment. And so pleasure starts to look like really slowing down and eating that juicy mango and tasting its nectar, its juices, or other ripe fruits that you might enjoy. It's about floating in the cool pool or cenote, like you did yesterday, Sam.
Mhm.
Like laughing until your belly's aching, or it's dancing barefoot, or watching the moon rise, or cooking a meal for your loved ones with fresh herbs from your garden, or receiving a hug or a smile from a stranger. It's allowing your shoulders to finally soften. That can feel so blissful if we're just really present for that release, for that loosening. And that is, of course, how we build ojas. And we know ojas is that vital substance that we experience when our nervous system says, it's safe enough, you're safe enough to enjoy. And our ojas is increased when we do all of those things. When we hug, when we release that oxytocin, when we rest, when we eat nourishing foods, when we have loving relationships, when we see beauty, when we experience devotion, those moments of sacred connection, whether that's in nature or whether that's in your community. And we can't eliminate, having a healthy drive, expressing ourselves, creating something as not an action that's not going to generate that ojas. It's just when we tip over into rajas and we're burning ourselves out, that's where we start to lose that precious ojas. And so it's all about us reclaiming wholesome pleasure. It isn't about escaping life. It's about returning to a full participation in it, with it. And the sense of pleasure, it becomes less about excitement, and more about presence, where beauty is no longer something to chase, but something that we learn to notice. So maybe you can ask yourself, where in your life are you chasing the next dopamine hit for achievement? When maybe actually you crave more oxytocin and ananda for presence and connection. I definitely can say that I think my reason for being on social media is about connecting. It's always been about connection. This is why I built this community also. It's connection, because for women, it's even more a need, a drive, a need. Shelley, she's like a UCLA psychologist professor, and she was the one who coined that term of tend and befriend. Like women, we need to talk about things, we need to connect with each other. Whereas men maybe, when they have a stress response, they go into more fight or flight. But women have tend and befriend. You know, it's an important, essential part of where we receive our oxytocin.
And so this is what we need to understand, ladies, that our bodies were not even studied throughout history until the early 2000s. And when they did study our bodies, they found out that our nervous system, it responded to oxytocin, which is social bonding, trust, and reproduction to create safety. These are all linked to ojas, while dopamine, which is close to rajas, passion, outward focus, our energy and desires, these were never your enemies. What if life is meant to have rajas moments where we challenge, we strive, and where there is this passion in our life? But because how else are we supposed to know what it feels like to have those inner victories? This fire is sacred and it's part of our design, each and every one of us. But what if the world also built, but also what about if in the world we're built for balance? You know, balancing these two pathways, we could say, this is essential for our well-being. Overstimulating dopamine without cultivating oxytocin, well, that just leads to burnout and anxiety. Excess rajas, you see, it destroys ojas. And if cultivating oxytocin provides that stable, peaceful foundation needed to handle the driving energy of dopamine, well, that we could say is rhythm. And when you find that balance and you start to remember there's this quiet joy, this quiet ananda that didn't have to be earned, it's only something that we get to return to. And if something in you recognize yourself today, this is exactly the work that we do alongside each other inside the Vital Woman Rising. The application link is below, and I'd love to walk this path with you. Watch the next video here and share this with a woman who's forgotten she's allowed to rest. I'll see you there. Take care.